brutally honest and unpopular opinions about travel. As someone who's been traveling internationally over 20 years and a former full-time traveler, these are the things that I wish I could tell my younger, more naive self. There is no difference between being a traveler and being a tourist. People love to say, I'm not a tourist, I'm a traveler, as if one is better than the other. I used to do this all the time. The stereotype goes, tourists are selfie stick wielding, buffet loving amateurs, while travelers avoid crowds. They eat where the locals eat. They chase authentic experiences. They're in the know. They aren't like those other people. And look, I think it's good to visit a place in a way that's respectful and not exploitative. And personally, I like to get off the beaten track too. But I think this whole I'm not a tourist thing is just something people do to make themselves feel important or feel better about themselves. But honestly, the locals aren't impressed by you. To them, you are a tourist, unless you're working there and paying taxes and all that stuff. And no matter how well-researched you are, you're still just visiting, and that's perfectly fine. Honestly, there's enough division in the world, so why don't we just keep travel fun? Travel doesn't make you a better person. There's this pretty prevalent idea out there that world travel makes you a better person, and I completely disagree. Yes, I think getting outside your bubble can open your eyes to new ways of thinking. For example, when I was 15, I visited Peru, and seeing people with nothing other than the shirt on their back be completely content blew my little Western materialist consumer mind. But I've also witnessed firsthand plenty of people visit a new country that are really just looking for their home country the whole time, comparing, complaining, and generally, in most of the examples I can think of, wishing where they are was more like what they're accustomed to. Mark Twain said, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. And I do believe he's right, but I don't believe this can be achieved without the right heart and mindset. I've said this before on this channel, but leave your arrogance at home. If not, travel isn't going to make you a better person. It's just another expensive hobby. Travel and vacation don't have to be connected. There's more than one way to experience a new place, and it doesn't have to mean completely unplugging. Some of my favorite trips weren't vacations at all. They were workations. For me, a workation might look like working for a few hours in the morning, going for a run around the city, grabbing lunch at a local spot, getting more work done, and then spending the evening exploring. It scratches the itch to go explore and see without having to burn a bunch of vacation time or the pressure of crafting the perfect packed itinerary. It's more about a change of scene and mixing it up. There's been studies done on this too. 67% of people who went on a workation said it recharged their mental and emotional batteries, and even more agree that it boosts productivity. Now, conversely, if relaxation is ultimately what you're after, maybe you don't need to fly halfway around the world to recharge. Sometimes a couple-hour drive to a nearby cabin might recharge you more than that packed whirlwind trip to Europe. Travel can be pretty exhausting. It just depends on your goals and what works for you. Tourist attractions are popular for a reason. Look, sometimes the super touristy thing is actually the best way to experience or learn about a place. You don't have to fight it. Hop on, hop off bus, guided tour, taking the selfie at the iconic spot. It's okay. You are a tourist, and if someone's judging you, who cares? Listen, most tourist attractions are popular because they're usually tied to what makes a place iconic and cool and unique. I'm not talking about the, Disney-fied kind of museums or experiential attractions, but what I am saying is please don't go all the way to Cambodia and not see Angkor Wat. Don't go to Bavaria and not see Neuschwanstein. Go do the thing on the postcard. Book in advance if you can, book skip the line tickets if you can, but do it. It's almost always going to be worth your time. Hey, if you've gotten value out of this video, please hit that thumbs up button so YouTube will know to suggest it to other travelers like you. And consider subscribing because there's way more where this came from. You'll remember the discomfort more than when things were easy. When Ali and I were traveling full-time, one of the toughest places for us was the Philippines. Nothing seemed to go right. We were exhausted, and it felt like the universe just kind of wasn't on our side during that season. Half the things we wanted to do were shut down because of COVID. Everything felt super chaotic and just disorganized. But here's the thing. Nowadays, we talk about the Philippines way more than we do Singapore or Cambodia. Not because it was better, but because we had this shared experience, this shared frustration or trial, if you will. And the frustrating times have become the stories that we talk about and laugh about the most. So if you're ever in a travel snafu, and I have countless ones, missing trains, losing a bag, having issues with your rental car, try to remind yourself that eventually this is gonna be a funny story. And I'll also add, if you've never fought with your spouse or significant other, take a trip. Travel means constant decision-making, where to eat, what to do, how to get there, and it's much easier to butt heads. But I think shared trial is a great way to strengthen your relationship. Not everywhere is dangerous. You're just afraid. A lot of people skip destinations they're interested in visiting because they've been led to believe that they are inherently dangerous places to be. But, and I want to be careful how I say this because some places are rougher than others, practically every country in the world is on the US State Department's don't travel list for one reason or another. If you took that literally, you would never leave home. The truth is, bad things can happen anywhere, even right at home. What you see on the news is usually the worst case scenario and not the day-to-day reality for the millions of people living there, working, raising their families, and just trying to go about their lives. That said, you can still be smart. Have situational awareness, and don't put yourself in compromising situations. Here's a few ideas. If you're solo, don't walk alone at night. Don't carry all your valuables on you, right? Make yourself kind of pickpocket proof. Have backup copies of your documents and put air tags in your luggage to track them if they're lost or stolen. Do your research and know the common scams in the area you're visiting. Be prepared, but don't be paranoid. And for the love of God, don't just stay home because you're afraid. The world isn't as scary as you think, and most places are gonna surprise you with how welcoming they are. Nobody back home cares about your trip. At least, not the way you do. Now they might ask, how was it? But we as human beings are inherently selfish. And what I mean by that is, everyone's the main character in their own story. I would add, nobody likes the person who finds a way to bring up their travels in every conversation. This used to be me.
Oh, you like croissants? That reminds me of this little bakery that I found in Paris.
We get it. You've been places. So when you're sharing your trip, whether it's in person or on social, just remember, most people don't care. And who did you take this trip for anyways? Full-time travel is overrated. Slow travel, overrated. Fast travel, overrated. There is no perfect speed of travel. I've done full-time travel. I've done slow travel, immersive trips where I stayed in one place for weeks. I've done the whirlwind city hopping thing where I was in a new place every few days. And they all have their ups and downs and pros and cons. When we traveled full time, we mixed it up. Sometimes we were moving nonstop. Other times we stayed put and just caught our breath. Fast travel can be exhausting and slow travel can get kind of boring. That's my opinion. The truth is there's no perfect speed and you shouldn't let some influencer tell you otherwise, right? I see all these travel influencers, folks like me, saying slow travel's the only way. But they don't have to worry about vacation time. And guess what? Sometimes it is appropriate to see a certain place in just a day or two. You need to do what works for you based on your goals, your energy, and your vacation days. Moving quickly isn't always the problem, but FOMO is. FOMO is the enemy of depth and your wallet. The pressure to see it all is a trap. Trying to cram 5 cities into 7 days usually doesn't let you experience places well. It just fills your itinerary. I've fallen into this many times before, and all I remember from back then is a blur of train stations and plane seats. The best trips I've ever had weren't about how many places I saw, they were more about going deeper, soaking in a particular neighborhood, finding a cafe I loved, and going back 3 days in a row. FOMO drains your energy, your wallet, and your joy. And again, that's not really a speed thing. It's more of a mindset thing. Don't dwell on what you might be missing. Just be present and enjoy where you are. You don't need to pack nearly as much as you think you do. You will almost never need a giant checked suitcase. Most people pack way more than they actually need for travel. And my unpopular opinion is almost everyone can make it work for any length of time in a single carry-on size suitcase or backpack. And in my opinion, traveling light isn't just cheaper and easier, it lightens your cognitive load too with all the stuff you're lugging around with you and you're responsible for. If you want to know my one-bag travel methodology and get a free packing list, check out this next video. Thank you so much for watching. Happy New Year and happy travels.